Hey you, it's Jess here and welcome back to my channel. We are finally doing another plan with me after so long. I paused for a few weeks to finish up my PhD and submit my thesis. So that is what I did this week that I am showing you guys. And I'm using my Estelle Cloud and Estelle inserts. And we're using an SPC kit called Fourth, I believe. I gotta look it up for the title, but yes. It is a 4th of July custom that I did for SPC, and I'm not obviously using it for 4th of July, although the week works out. Yes, time to party. That's the overlay I really wanted to use for my submission week, but I decided I wanted to use it also just to celebrate finishing my PhD and my own personal freedom from academia kind of thing, I guess. Not really celebrating 4th of July. Obviously, I'm not American, and I know many didn't celebrate this year. But yeah, I wanted to use this kit because it's pretty, and I was really happy with the art. So this video, I'm not really going to talk about the plans or the stickers. You'll see as I go. This week, I just submitted my thesis on the Tuesday, June 30th, and then the rest of the week was kind of like a I need to rest week. What I'm going to be doing this video and why it's so long and in normal speed, hopefully, so I'll be asking answering a bunch of questions I got on Instagram asking about PhD in school. And I'm going to try and bunch these up into themes. So first, sort of like doing the PhD, why did I do it, what it's about. Then we're going to get into like questions about during the PhD and balance and whatnot, and tip notes and stuff, and then sort of finishing up with what happens now, and and how it's all going to get finished. So let's get into the questions. I won't be saying who asked them because I just wrote them down, but I obviously saw all of you guys, and you'll know when your question is there. Some questions were overlaps, so they kind of put into one. Let's get into the questions. The first one was, when you first started higher ed, did you think you would be getting a PhD one day? And the answer is no, definitely not. I mean, I had a very tenuous high school and even primary school. I guess it was around middle school when it really got tenuous for American years, if you're thinking about that. Year 6. Probably year 6 and onwards, although I guess year 4 or 5 wasn't great either. Let's just say, long story short, I've never been great at school. I always thought the funniest thing would be if I got a job as a teacher one day, because I could barely go to school. I was very much a truant. I just didn't like school. I didn't enjoy it. I thought it was boring. Kids were mean or pointless. I don't know. I was never really that into school. I was a very sensitive child. And so I never really saw myself doing like a PhD. I mean, a goal was, even though I wasn't great at school, like going to school or being that interested, I always wanted to go to university, and a specific one, University of Adelaide. I toured it when I think I was in year 2. And I thought it was like the best place ever. So I always wanted to go, but things didn't always work out. And I didn't officially finish year 12 or senior year. So I couldn't apply to uni straight out. I had to do other avenues, which you can do in Australia. I eventually got to university after doing... Back then, when you turned 21, you could take a special administration test, which gave you a score to apply to universities, and you couldn't do it until you were 21. So when I turned 21, I did that, and I got into university. You can now do it from 18, which would have been a lot more useful, but I'm kind of glad starting uni at 21 rather than at 18. But even then, as I was doing uni, my goal was to get honours. Really wanted honours because you had to have good enough grades to do honours, and then through honours then the PhD kind of became more like this could actually happen. So no, from when I first started, no. When I first started, I just wanted to be able to pass a class, to be honest. And then someone asked, why did you decide to pursue a PhD? Well, obviously I wanted to do honours, which is doing a undergrad thesis, which I'm sure they do elsewhere. It's just in Australia, it's called an honours year. It's like an additional 4th year onto your BA. And you have to apply to get in and ask for a supervisor who might want to work with you and think up of a thesis theme. And you write a 15,000 word thesis. And I wrote a thesis on a medieval mystic. And just doing that thesis, so we had to, so school year there is January, December. So, well, really it's March, November. But we had to apply to do a PhD or master's before we did even handed in the honours thesis. So I did actually, through that process, I felt confident that maybe I could apply because graduate jobs were not great. I was applying for graduate jobs. They were all at insurance companies or banks, and it just didn't really excite me. So I was like, I'm going to apply for more postgrad, as we call it. So I applied for that's why I pursued it, basically. No good grad jobs out there that really excited me, and I was kind of enjoying the student life. So I applied for a master's in art history and a PhD in history, and I got good enough marks on my honours. I got first class to go straight to a PhD rather than having to do a master's. So that's what I did. That's why I pursued it in the end. I kind of just wanted to delay the working force. And also the fact that a PhD in Australia, most of the time you can get a scholarship from the government or your school for money. So I did get one of those. If I hadn't gotten the scholarship, I don't know. Someone asked, how did you pick your school? I feel like university is a bit different in Australia in that it's much rarer to move interstate to go to a university. Most universities here, they have everything and they're usually fairly good at what they do. I feel like med school's a bit different. But like doing a history degree, there are 3 universities in my hometown, by the way, and all 3 of them do a history degree. But campus-wise, location-wise, and then the actual courses they have in history and English, because I was doing double major, were just better at the University of Adelaide, and I just really wanted to go to University of Adelaide. I just really like that university. It's considered like the premium fancy university, you know, we're all a bunch of wankers so we know it kind of thing. It's the fancy university in town. But I'd already gone to, like, in the journey to getting to history. After I did that admissions test, I actually started visual arts at University of South Australia, which is on the opposite side of town. And I didn't really like that campus. It was, like, all cement. It was really odd, and the only people who ever learnt my name the year that I went to art school was one of my art history and theory teacher, Dr. Moss, and his classes really inspired me to go and try history and English all together. Like, there's also art history at Adelaide Uni, so I wanted to do more of that in the end, rather than practical art, which is kind of ironic now. And then before I did the admissions test, when I was still too young, I did a foundation course at the 3rd university, Flinders University. And their campus is a lot nicer now, but back then I didn't really like it. And it's basically you had to be able to drive in their campus. It's not very accessible. And I don't have a driver's license, so Adelaide Uni was really the best option for me and what I really wanted to do. And it ended up having like the perfect supervisors and everything. So Now we're talking about the actual thesis. Why and how did you choose your thesis theme? And furthermore, is it a specialized topic about history or a region? So the fun thing about a PhD is that it's extremely specialized and niche. So basically, how did I choose my theme? One of my favorite courses that I did, and it was run by my supervisor, was Heresy and Witchcraft in the Middle Ages. And obviously the witchcraft is more in the early modern, but it's not really in the Middle Ages. But it was about heresy, and then I think it was the second lecture, she mentioned that there are also a lot of women mystics, and they would have interesting visions and, just mystical stuff. She said, but we can't really get into this course, but they do exist. And that just stuck in my mind. I don't know why. I was just like, I want to learn more about these women mystics, Catholic mystics. Well, look at me adjusting my camera. Anyway, so that lecture really stuck with me, and I think that was in my second year. And then when for honors we had to apply for honors thesis, we had to ask a possible supervisor and tell them about what area we want to look at. And I was like, so I went to that lecture and I was like, I want to do an honors thesis and I want to look at women mystics. And we also had a research center, an Australian Research Council, a Center for Excellence in the History of Emotions. And I really liked that whole idea of specifically researching historical emotion and using emotional theories. And the year that I did honors, we actually had a class about the history of emotions we could do, which was really, really great. And so I was like, I want to do women mystics and I want to look at emotions because it's a very emotional thing. And it's like such a new field of study. So that's really how I got into it. And then, so I did a medieval mystic called Mechthild of Magdeburg, which was awesome. I really enjoyed doing that thesis. So when we're like, okay, we got to apply for PhD, we have to sort of run down a bit of a proposal here. So I wanted to still do women mystics and emotions, but Mechthild of Magdeburg wrote in German, and the other sources were in Latin. And most medieval sources would have been in Latin. And well, I don't know Latin, so with PhDs, you have to know the language that you're going to study in. So if you want to do a Spanish person, you have to know Spanish. You have to be able to read the sources in their original language. So we changed it up. My lecturer, actually, her area is 17th century English nuns. And she was like, not a lot of mysticism work has been done with these nuns. And they wrote in English. Well, early modern English. It's a bit to learn, but it's a lot easier to read than trying to learn Latin. So that's how we switched to that. And so when we're talking about specialized niche, my theme for women mystics, 17th century English nuns, was I chose one convent, and I only chose less than 100 years of that convent. So it was founded in 1619, and I stopped at 1699. That's all I included. Just at the one convent, they did have other convents connected to them, but I didn't follow up through those ones. I just stayed in the one convent in Antwerp. And so, but then you have this sort of interesting interplay of that they're actually Catholic exiles because you couldn't be an openly practicing Catholic in England at the time, so they went to the continent and they set up an English foundation in Antwerp. So you have that play of exile, living in a foreign country, But yeah, so that's how niche it is. I know some people, one person, they planned to do 1,000 years and they ended up only doing 50 years, and they could still do a whole thesis on that. So the thesis is always super duper specialized, especially in history, because you want to talk about so many things. You don't think you can fill up 80,000 words, but you can very easily. So the last one of this section of questions is, what would you say to someone considering their PhD? Well, I think I read this one once, there's a difference between like, do you want to do a PhD or do you have to do a PhD? Like, just in your own mind, like, is this something you just feel like you need to do? I feel like that's something to consider, because PhDs they're a wild roller coaster of emotions. They're extremely isolating. So you want to like level up. Like, will you have an office? Will you have a cohort? Are there things in place? Like, we had fortnightly history circles where we all met up and talked history and then had drinks after. Like, do you have these kind of things? Because you're going to need friends during PhD. And what are the possible supervisors like? You want to try and get to know them a little bit, know their research, have a look around, because some supervisors end up being a total nightmare, and that's basically it for you. Like, the PhD is ruined. You also want to consider money. I personally wouldn't do a PhD unless I had funding. It is so needed. Like, you can still do it part-time, or you can set your own hours. I mean, you're basically just doing whatever you want, especially an Australian PhD where you don't do any courses or classes. You just go straight into research, and you can set your own time. You don't have to go to your office. So you need that other something there, and I think money is a good motivator. And it also just gives you some stabilization, because you're going to be thinking about this for 3 years, 4 years. So I think money is a big thing as well. Although I never took into consideration future jobs, which might have been a mistake to some people, but the PhD in the end was for me. I wanted to say that I did it. I want to prove myself that I could do it, especially with my history of school. And truancy and a lot of my own background stuff there. So it depends really on, for me it's just like, okay, I'll apply, okay, I got in, cool, I got money, done. Like, it wasn't a huge process, and I feel like also that was easier because in Australia you don't pay any tuition. My PhD has given me no debt. So that's also another thing to consider. If you're doing PhD, especially in America, you have to consider the debt as well. And if you can get debt covered or something like that, I don't know. So those are the things to consider. I think money is important in there. But I think a lot of it is to do with yourself and whether it's just something you really feel you're passionate about. You want to research, you want to write something new that adds to human knowledge, That's what you're doing in the end. You're contributing. So that's the end of that section. So what are we doing next? This is sort of the end stuff. So I got like, these are kind of combined. So what's next? Are you moving to art full time or pursuing something with your degree? Are you going to apply research positions or teaching? So this was all kind of complicated with moving to Finland, in that I don't think I can do any teaching here because it's all mostly in Finnish, especially in history. I think there are research positions, but the fun thing about research is it's all about, half of it is just applying for grants, and I just don't know if I have that in me. I'm very much not looking forward to that, so I don't think I'm going to go into academia at this time. The ultimate goal really is to turn my thesis into a book, and I think I want to look into doing that next year, because it takes a good solid 6 months work to change a thesis into a book. I probably have to add another chapter on, which probably means more research, and that will probably mean it has to be post-COVID to be able to do that research. And I could probably apply for some funding for that research next year. So that's kind of what I don't know about a postdoc yet, honestly. I don't know. I think I have like 5 years to decide altogether, but at the moment I don't really want to pursue anything to do with my degree, and I can't teach in Finland. Sorry, I dropped my pen. Because of Finnish. If I went back to Australia, if I wanted to, I could probably do teaching, but there's this huge shake-up both in Australia and in the UK on humanities teaching, and that it is getting stripped. They're really trying to destroy humanities at the moment, especially history. I think there's a whole idea that teaching history is very ideological and turning everyone into communists, all the students, but it's not. It's kind of ridiculous. So I don't even know if there are going to be jobs, even in teaching soon, because they've paused jobs. So it's kind of a precarious time in humanities academia. So yes, what I'm doing is moving to art full-time. It does pay me almost the medium wage here in Finland monthly. If I really bust my butt, I can make a fairly good, like I have enough for the rent and the bills, and, everything like that. Art full time at the moment, so I feel like I should take this opportunity to be able to do art before I have to go into the real world to do it. So that's what I'm going to do for at least the next 6 months. Art full time is really what I want to do. And Audrey of Scribble Prints Co is so supportive of this. She's always wanting more art. So who am I to say no? So that's what I'm doing right now, doing art full time. And then next year I want to look into getting a book published. And I should say that academic publishing gives you nothing. Maybe most of the time you kind of sign away royalties. I think my friend got $1,000 for the book in advance. That was it. That's what you get. And then they sell these books for $200 each. So I know there's a lot of people who say like, oh, the lecturers who make you buy their super expensive books because they want to get rich. Well, guess what? They're probably making like 30 cents a year of royalties on those books, and they're expensive, but it's got nothing to do with the lecturer, honestly. Academic publishing is not to make money. So then someone asked me, what will you miss? Probably the whole uni. I'm already out of it because I moved, but just being at the uni in my office with everyone who was there, the students, the lecturers, supervisors. It was just really nice. The flexibility and just having such a good workplace is what I'll probably miss the most. And then unlimited printing. Yes. And then, library access and everything. It's probably just that, because it's just such a good workplace and you set your own hours. And I still will be as a self-employed, but that's probably what I will miss in that sense. Just the people and the atmosphere. And conferences were okay. I really hated the networking part, but I liked seeing other people's research. Heidi just dragged herself from under the couch. Looks so silly. All right. So have you published any part of your PhD? That's what I'm working on right now, the book chapter I'm working on, which you can see down below on Monday. That book chapter is from a paper that I did at a conference. So the conference conveners were let's make a collected book from this conference. So people who did papers were asked if they wanted to contribute to the book. So I think I'll be chapter 7 from the looks of it, which is really awesome. And it's a paper that was based on my 4th and final chapter. So I'm just editing that right now for their publishers. So technically I will be published as a book chapter. So that'll be really exciting. yeah, I haven't really focused on publishing. I mean, in the end, I just wanted the PhD for myself. So I just didn't focus on all the publishing because my brain doesn't work that way. How do you balance making videos while focusing on school? That was a hard one because videos are way more fun to do, including voiceovers and editing, in my opinion. What I tried to do is I had one day that I did all my filming and editing. Sometimes it went into the next day, but usually Monday I'd finish up all my filming, and otherwise during the week when I wanted to do more updates, I would just do it at night. It's up to you. I think what my supervisor said was to have dedicated days to things. So like if you wanted to do more publishing during the thesis, you're like, okay, Wednesday will be my day to work on articles and stuff. I think setting aside a day where you do that stuff is the best. And if you have energy and time afterwards, do some other work. But yeah, set a day just to do all your filming, get it done with. And then you have it done. That's how I pretty much do it. Any tips with note-taking? Always do page numbers. Always. So what I do with note-taking is that I did it all on paper. This might be a mistake to some people, but that's how I remember things, by writing them with my hand. And I had notebooks, and when I started a book or an article, I did the full reference at the top. So then I wouldn't have to go back. So all page numbers, if they're needed in that kind of reference. Title, artist, blah, blah, blah. So that'd be at the top. Then I do the page number, and then I start doing the notes. And if I'm doing direct quotes, I do obviously the quotation marks, but otherwise I just sort of paraphrase of what they said on that page kind of thing. And that's pretty much how I did it. And with note-taking, so that's a physical note-taking, and I always have the page numbers for each section. But in terms of that and actually reading something, if it's a book, I'd go through the whole introduction, and then I would go through the whole conclusion, and then maybe if there's something specific I want, I'll go through the index and try and find those specific pages. But honestly, you probably won't have time to read a whole book. The introduction and the conclusion really sets up, what they're going to say, and then the conclusion kind of brings together how they said it, so you can get an idea if you want to look at specific chapters, or even just seeing like how someone did this or that. So that's how I did note taking. I don't know. And then some people also sometimes I also did color coded notes. So I'm like, if I had different topics and themes I wanted to bring up, I would do that. And then if you're doing a literature review, it'd be good to, with those notes when you're done, to just write a few sentences about, like, what was the whole book about, what was their opinion, what was the theories that they used, whether anyone that they said they disagreed with, where did they position themselves in history. And that really helps with the literature review later, because that's what you're doing. So hopefully that makes any sense with note-taking. That's at least what note-taking was for me. I don't know. They asked, is your school doing an online graduation ceremony? Not that I know of. I don't think they did this year either. They just cancelled it, and you could pick up your degree and stuff. I don't know about next year. I don't even know if Australia will be open for me to go to it, if they are running it. I would like to do it next year. That's what I'm looking at. May next year, I think. But no online graduate ceremony. Everyone who did this year was just conferred, and then they did the usual emails of this person finished. So, no. They do stream them when they do them in person, though. So, I don't know. Who knows about that? So this is next in the PhD stuff. is, do you have to defend your thesis now, or do only some PhD programs do that? So I believe in the US you have the defense, in the UK you have the viva or viva, which is a defense in person. But in Australia you don't. My supervisor thinks that's one of my supervisors thinks that's a bad thing, because she thinks it's good to be able to argue in person. My other supervisor says, no way, don't want to do a defense. And I'm on the side of I don't want to do a defense. But yeah, no, we don't do a defense in Australia. We literally write up the thesis, it gets sent to 2 examiners, and then hopefully it passes. Yeah, that's really it. Australia, I don't know how do the Australian PhDs are possibly easier than others because you don't have to do this kind of work, but then it takes a lot longer. So the next question was how long until the results. So that's the difference, is I think with the defense you kind of find out there and then through your defense if it's passed or not. Whereas when you submit the thesis to your examiners to read and mark, the Graduate Centre said they have a deadline of 3 months. So hopefully it's only 3 months maximum. Some are able to read it quickly. Like my friend Kylie got her results back in 3 weeks. But some people took even longer than 3 months because their examiner went on maternity leave. Oh look, I just submitted my thesis. Yay! And I'm putting on a Caress Press half box overlay just to make it even more snazzy. But yeah, it could be 3 months at the best. Could be more depending on my examiners. Especially this time, I think both my examiners will probably be in the Northern Hemisphere, so it'll be summer. They're probably working on their next courses, trying to work out online teaching. So who knows? I don't actually know who my examiners are, and I may never know unless they want to say so. They are anonymous. I did send in like a list of 11 possible examiners, and then a couple of people I said, do not send this to ever for my own reasons. Yeah, so I don't even know who's marking it, but we'll see. So hopefully 3 months, possibly sooner. We will see. And the thing is with the results is it can be passed with no amendments, or it could be a pass but with some amendments, so you just do some little changes, but it's done. And then most of the time people get accepted but with revisions, like minor revisions. So that way you actually do have to edit the thesis depending on their comments that they give you from the examiners and resubmit. And then the very, very worst, you get accepted but major revisions, which sometimes they're like, you need an extra 6 months on this. Which if it gets to that, I probably will just cry for a week. So fingers crossed. Not even amendments, please. But no, minor revisions is what you're hoping for. But yes, that's still a possibility that it's not going to be finished. But I guess that's the upside of the defense, is that sometimes you do have to do revisions after defense, but you also may be able to talk your way out of them, which is the upside of the defense. But then I was asked, what can you do with a PhD? Like, what was it for? So a PhD in history, obviously you can do university teaching. I already did, like, while I was a student. I was a tutor. You can go into postdocs, so you're researching, lecturing, creating courses, teaching courses, publishing articles and books and book chapters. That's in academia, so academic stuff. But then with a PhD, you could say, especially with history, I have extremely high critical thinking skills. I can write extremely well, so you can go to all sorts of a lot of people I know go into government positions, like admin or just general government positions where they need that kind of, well, you're basically like, I have those skills to give you good reports. I can manage projects for a long time. I can work with other people really well. You can pretty much do anything with a PhD, honestly. I know some people say some employees aren't as good about it, and they'll say, oh, you'll get bored at this job, or, you're overqualified. But the thing is, after a PhD, you're kind of just like, please, honestly, I would even just do data entry. Please bore me. I'm so tired. But you could do any job. And it's just that you got to the very top of academia. So you could probably do even higher up jobs. But you can get high level public service jobs. And you could work for NGOs. You could do charity work. You could, anything really. That's the upside of the history PhD. You could also work in libraries and history things of different associations and companies, They all kind of need that stuff. It's the way you sell your skills, Like, I can research and I can run a project for 4 years and, stuff like that. Also, I can look up anything you want me to do and I can learn to do it. So, I know, PhD, in my opinion, is for yourself. It's for your life. Be like, look at me, I'm Dr. Jess. But it's my thing, and in the end, it contributes to human knowledge, Now these nuns and their lived experience of mysticism and how they used it as a way to have historical agency and power in a misogynist world, Their experience is now there and argued for, and they're no longer in the archives kind of thing. And if I turn it into a book, then even better. That's what a PhD is for. I was asked, we're getting to the end here, which we still got a few minutes of this video left, like 20 minutes. Is school your for real full-time job, or were you able to pay for a living from your art? So I started my art the end of second year. So before that, uni was my full-time job. My scholarship wasn't great. It was just above the poverty line, honestly. It was tax-free though. I did live with someone else who also had one, so that made our income a bit better. But it was my full real-time job. I was also full-time. Even in the last year, they only give you 3 years funding, but you have 4 years to do the degree. So the last year, I wasn't getting any money, which I think it was a mistake. They should have, if it's a 4-year degree, they should give you 4 years funding, in my opinion. But yeah, it was. But you can also, at the same time, when you're full-time, you can also tutor like multiple classes, so you can also work while you're doing that full-time job. And then obviously from starting my art and then my scholarship ending, that did it did pay for a living. It paid, honestly, I don't think it actually paid more. I think now it does. Now that I do more customs a month, I get paid more than I did for my scholarship. But at the time that I was still having my scholarship, it was really good extra income. But yeah, I can pay for a living from my art. So, and I still worked full time on my school stuff. Although I could have been finished a lot earlier, if I hadn't spent those extra days doing art sets. But it is possible. So the further question of, is it possible to work while doing a PhD is yes. And most of the time, you have to work through a PhD anyway, because you won't make enough money from the PhD to support yourself. It's just the way it is, I think, worldwide. And most of the time you will be asked to tutor, and it will be expected to you to tutor. And pay for tutoring is not bad, in Australia at least. I don't know about America. That just sounds like a hellscape, honestly, in terms of adjunct and whatnot. But no, you probably will work during PhD. You kind of have to. And the thing is, at least in Australia, you can go from part-time to full-time to part-time, depending on that. But I think it's perfectly doable to work during a PhD. It's so flexible otherwise. And as long as you're managing your time and hitting your milestones in time, then I think it'll work. But yeah, that, it's kind of expected you to do that and to also try and research and publish. And, it's just like when you're finished and you become an academic, you're supposed to teach, lecture, research, supervise, all at the same time. So my supervisor did way more work than me. I did considerably less work than actuality. But it is possible. And probably you will have to work during a PhD, both being full-time even. And then the question, is Rachel the second best academic you know after yourself? So, Rachel, I'm pretty sure you're the better academic than me. So Rachel was one of my friends. We met in honors and continued into PhD together. She finished months before me, and now she actually has publications, and she's got a lecturing job. So I think she's a better academic, honestly. Rachel is goals academic. So Rachel, if you're watching this far, you're the first best academic. Is that every question? La 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 la. Oh, I love this Crow's nail polish stickers. I haven't painted my nails in the whole COVID time, so it was nice to finally paint them. But I think that's all the questions about the PhD. Yeah, now it's just a waiting game. One of my personal thoughts, though, to sort of finish up this discussion, and we still have a bit more than 10 minutes left of this plan with you. Basically, I'm happy now that I've finished, but the majority of the time in the last 4 years, I was not. So this might be part of if you're considering a PhD and the whole isolating thing, and there's just something about it's so hard to describe. It doesn't seem like it's just school, right? It doesn't seem like it should be the way it is mentally, but it is. There was a survey of mental health and PhD, and just the act of having and doing a PhD, you were 30% more likely to have depression. Just for doing it. Not anything to do with it. Just you're doing a PhD, you're 30% more likely to develop depression and have it. And I don't know if that's to do with the kind of people who want to go into PhD. I feel like there's very different people. I knew tons of extroverted people who were just so proactive and they loved research. I don't know if they had issues. Maybe they did. But I also know tons of people like me who's introverted and they struggled at every point. And you guys have known that I quit a couple times. I quit for sure one time. And that was last year before I went back to Australia for the first time to try and work through it. And then I tried to quit again December last year. So that's why I decided to go back to Australia this year, because that was the only way to keep going. But it doesn't seem like you should quit, but you really do want to quit a lot of the time. It doesn't really make much logical sense. It's very irrational. But there's a constant, because it's so flexible, because it's a 4-year project, because it's all just to do with you and your own motivation. there's a lot of guilt. Any second you're doing something else, you're just racked with guilt that you're not doing this, you're not doing a thesis when you could be, or you can't get yourself to get through a paragraph and you don't know why, and it's just guilt. And I gotta have a drink. So yeah, for that sense, it's a hard slog. Like, and I know some people who, especially in America, the PhD is like 9 years long, and honestly, I don't know how you guys do it. Maybe doing the courses and stuff makes it easier, but in Australia, you just go straight into research. It's 4 years maximum. After that, you're kind of penalized. So you have this deadline looming over you for this gigantic project, which sometimes all you can do in one day is just to think about it. You can't even do any work. And then, life gets in the way, and then you get sick and you feel guilty for being sick. And you always just say, like, I feel like doing a normal job would be so much easier on the psyche, because it's like, well, you're getting paid, and you might get fired, so there's a thing. But at the end of the day, you go home from work, 5 o'clock, you clock out, you go home, you can do whatever you want. That's not the same with PhD. It's literally on your mind 24/7. It's what your dreams are made of. Even when I was just doing art, like as I was drawing, I was thinking about it. So, yeah, it's kind of omnipresent, which for some people, just not doable. And it really gets on you after a while. I know I have my friend who, just trying to do the first milestone, in the first 6 months, she had a mental breakdown and wanted to quit. And it really, really tests you, which I think also is why your PhD should be something you do for yourself and not for a job or for this. Because in the end, all it is something for yourself. Yeah. So I don't know. Can't say I'm 100% positive on it. Not yet. But yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about the PhD. Just have to wait. I hope I don't have too much revisions, because that's going to be really hard to get into after 3 months. But yeah, so I guess we could talk about the spread a little bit, because we've got 9 minutes. Yeah, so this week we're like, hey, so we have all this TV we've stopped watching because didn't have time because PhD. So let's start binging some of it. So we binge watched, I think we finished the 100 at the end of season 3. So the CW's the 100. So we binge watched all the way to the end of, finished season 6 this week. Yeah. Binge watch all of that. That was interesting. I half hate watch that show though. It's some of it is a bit redonk. But it's still interesting. I like sci-fi TV shows. So we binge watched a lot of the 100. I had a lot of naps. I was very tired after all that, pretty much 2 weeks straight of 5 a.m. working. On Sunday, I marked that my candidature ended on the 5th. So that was my deadline. So if I had submitted even a day after that date, my thesis wouldn't be able to be considered for a Dean Award or a university medal, nothing. It would be considered null and void, basically. You could still finish, but the university wouldn't care because you didn't make the deadline 4 years. So yeah, I should say it was July 5th because I took a few months off during the time to take leave of absence, which basically it's unpaid time off and it extends your date at the end. So I actually started on the 29th of February 2016 on a leap year. And so technically I should have been finished 28th of Feb or 1st of March this year. Or even, was it the 29th? Was it a leap year this year? I can't remember. that's when I should have officially finished, but as you know, I took a couple of months on leave, which extended my time. And then when I came back from Australia this year, I applied for an extra month extension, even though technically I couldn't apply for leave in my fourth year, because, you know, there's a lot of penalties about being lazy about finishing, because that's why they have it end in fourth year, because they finish your scholarship in the third year, because they don't want you to be lazy and taking too long. So you can't take any leave during that fourth year either. But I was able to get leave because of COVID. Thankfully, they gave me an extra month. Otherwise, it would have been due 5th of June. So that was very much needed. So my goal was to submit on the Friday the 3rd. But obviously, I got it done earlier. So yay me. But yeah, that was like that whole thing. Again, that was also not great on the mental health. Not even being able to take any time off in that last year. A bit mean if I say so. Yes. So I put like that little drunk Fox and Cactus girl because I thought it perfectly matched. She's like, I'm just so tired. But luckily nothing ever came. I didn't even get an email saying my candidate ended because my submission had gone through, which is nice. And I used that little narwhal for Fox and Cactus, which will be in the next haul. I decided to film some whole sections so I could use my stickers to mark nap, because I was like, nah to being awake. I'm gonna have a nap. And then I did do some filming. Yeah, I don't know, we just binge watch a lot of the 100. But I really enjoyed using this kit, and I just thought all the silvery stuff was so pretty. But yeah, I'm still working on the book chapter. I need to get that done the next couple of days, and then I'll actually be finished. Yeah, but as you can see in this video also, I have half of my new light set up. I got an Elgato key light, and I just bought a second one. And they're very expensive, but they're so much nicer than a box light. They take up much less room. It's kind of redonk. And you can actually like control them from your phone. You can control how warm and how cool and how bright they are. So I'm really looking forward to getting the second one of those in, probably around August. Elgato is very much, it's hard to buy them. They sell out very quickly. Yeah, so we'll have great lighting, and then I just got a new camera in the mail, which hopefully, I've already filmed a few things with my old camera, but I'll have a new camera soon, and we'll have to figure out those settings together, because I don't know, it's a completely different camera, so, but hopefully it'll work better on my setup. I just really needed a lighter camera, honestly, for my current setup, and hopefully it should look a bit nicer than this. This still looks, I mean, I think the new light made everything a lot sharper, but hopefully all together it'll be a lot sharper setup, and now I'll be actually able to film a lot better now. I'll film a lot more for you guys. I remember how I used to do 3 videos a week, and I still don't know, still struggle to think of 3 videos a week these days. I think it's because I use multiple planners, but now I'm just home all the time doing business stuff. I don't know. I don't know how to do 3 videos a week anymore, especially because I haul much less. But we will see. But I think that was all of the PhD questions. Hopefully that was interesting for you guys. I kind of just laid it all out there. And I was very thankful to have so many questions asked. So thank you so much if you asked a question on Insta. I'm sorry if I didn't get your exact question. I think I covered everything, and then some of them were obviously repeated. But yeah, so I'm just so relieved to be finished. And once this book chapter is done, I'll be even more relieved. Like, just finally just relax. And I'm starting This month I won't have a set out. I'm doing a month of just customs for SBC, but they're going to be so amazing. So I'm so excited to do all of those this month. And then August I am back, hopefully with 2 releases a week of art. That should be good. And I hope to do more art videos in the future. I want to do some more traditional art as well, like with actual pens and stuff. I do love a little sketchbook, sketching with a pen. So maybe we'll do some filming of that if you guys are interested. But yes, actually leave me anything down below that you'd love to see on video. I do need to organize my character stickers again because they've gone unruly, so we have to go through those. But any videos you'd like to see, please leave them down in the comments below. If you watched all 56 minutes of this video, thank you so much. I very much appreciate it, even if you just listened to my voiceover. But I've been talking for 55 minutes straight, so I think I'm just about done. And here is the finished spread. I think it turned out gorgeous. I love it. I hope you have a safe and wonderful week. Keep educating yourself. I should say Black Lives Matter. I haven't been able to properly say that, but they do. And I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.